was going to be on at 2. It is now 2:30 almost. What is up? What's going on? How's everybody doing today? I've not been on in a little bit, so I wanted to come on here and say hello, say hi. I've been busy doing a bunch of different stuff, but let's talk a little bit about analog versus digital. I get asked this question every day, all of the time. What got me into analog versus digital? What's up? How are you? Analog, I love analog. So back when I was a little kid, the big thing that everybody wanted to get into, that everybody was obsessed with, was digital. Digital, for sure, all day. And here is why. We were so used to the analog sound at that point. We were so used to the sound of vinyl, CDs, cassettes, radio, that when digital first came out, this is like the early 2000s, and it first got to the consumer market with, I believe it was called the M-Box by Pro Tools. So Pro Tools had been out for many years, decades at that point. But when it came out to the mainstream market, to where the everyday engineer with a studio could get one, maybe a few $1,000s up to $30,000 depending on your setup, but it was now available. Everybody wanted to have digital. Digital was the thing. And at that time, I'm trying to remember how much the prices were, maybe around $1,000 or so to get a basic setup. It was probably a little bit more than that. Everybody loved the fact that the sound was super crisp. It was super clean. It was super sharp. And it didn't sound muddy. It didn't sound too thick. It didn't have too much coloration. It didn't have the distortion that a lot of, let's say, lower end, a lot of like mid-level studios had. And so at the time, it was considered to be like a godsend. Exactly. Arts, no hiss. Yeah, people loved it. They didn't have to deal with the tape machines and the routing, and you could actually do playback and do your editing right there. Like, it seemed like a dream come true for producers and engineers. And back at that time, there was so much snobbery. I remember watching it as a little kid, watching the musicians that I was growing up around who were older be so concerned with, they have the new Pro Tools, they have the new digital. That was the thing. If you didn't have digital, you weren't cool. And then when plugins came out, that was considered to be the next level. Plugins could do anything that analog could do, so we thought at that time. You said, we're talking about music equipment. I'm not sure who this is, but I'm going to go ahead and... Okay. Mute that, because that's some weird stuff. Okay, so getting back to what we were talking about just now. When... Did I take a screenshot? Oh, man. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. They're interrupting my live. They're interrupting my live. Okay, so back to what I was doing. So, at that time, I'm going to take my time telling this story because this is important. So, when plugins came out, that was considered to be pure freedom. We now had unlimited ability to make sure that we could get all of the different types of sounds that we wanted, that we could get all of the different types of styles that we wanted without having to buy this big, bulky equipment. So this was a really big thing. But the major commercial studios at that time were still using big consoles, kind of like what you see nowadays with like Chris Lord-Alge and Andy Wallace, and they still have these massive, consoles and all this different stuff. But where the mid-level producer came in is they felt like they had an edge with digital. We could now get these super clean, crisp, radio, commercial sounding, quality products at an affordable price. And it was faster, and it was accessible, and it was quick. The problem is, though, in my opinion, and I don't think everybody knew this at first, digital sounds great for so many different styles of music, but not all. At the time, we didn't know this. When I first got into recording, I was 100% digital. I was like, well, I wasn't 100%, I was kind of a hybrid, I guess they would call it. So I used a little bit of analog, a little bit of digital. But I swore by digital. I got my computer, I have my DAW, my digital audio workstation, I have my music plugins, and you couldn't tell me anything at all. I thought if you were using analog at that point in time, there was just something wrong with you. Why would you use that when we had all of this digital here? We could record unlimited tracks, so we thought you still needed the space. We could record and open up the session as many times as we needed to. We could do all this post-editing. We could do all these cool tricks and stuff like that. We were so excited. So you couldn't tell me anything. And I had some producers tell me, I'm going to answer questions at the very end. Yes, so stick with me. I was talking to different producers and engineers, and they were like, you need to try analog. And I was like, no, I don't know. No, that's ridiculous. What are you doing buying all that stuff? And you can still make a lot of arguments today for why digital might be better in many, many ways. But long story short, as I got older, I heard the difference with A/B recordings, digital versus analog, and I was blown away. I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted it to sound like. And I wasn't able to get it with digital. Tried everything you could think of. Have hundreds of plugins, different DAWs, different recording techniques, everything you could think of. And it wasn't until I got my first analog compressor, mixing board, that I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. And it's so much fun. You know, for certain people like me, we like touching the knobs, we like touching buttons and stuff like that. And we like being able just to focus on the music and not have to worry about looking at a computer screen, at least while we're recording our music. So I love how it sounds, and I feel like it's very creative for me. So as a result, I got into it. Analog equipment, though, can be very addictive. Once you get your first compressor or your first equalizer, your first mixing board, in some cases you want it all. And they call it gear acquisition syndrome. You want everything. You want every mixer, you want every, so you do have to slow yourself down. But it took a while. There was a period in time where all I would do is, well, I won't go into all those details, but I buy a new piece every single month, you know, and I've got some tape machines back there, some analog tape machines. Might be able to see them a little bit. I've got a couple of mixing boards, but I haven't bought anything in a long time. Now I only buy something if I like absolutely, you know, need it. There are certain, like I want a tape echo. I want a tape echo so bad. I have tried one. I went to a friend's studio. He had an analog studio and they're so cool. Very expensive, but they sound amazing. So let me go back up and see if I missed any comments. I apologize. And let me see what, you said you have a Midas 32 channel. Way cool. That's pretty big. This one is 24 tracks, isn't it? Or is it 32? This one's 32 tracks. So it's probably about the same size as mine. Привет. I do actually speak a little bit of that language because I took it in college. We have to, you know, foreign language requirements, so I took that language and sign language as well. Let's see. Is that Tascam TSR8? It is. Thank you, Shane. I appreciate it. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. But yeah, I did want to come on here and say hello. I'll do a longer video a little bit later. But I did want to come on here and say hello and answer a little bit of the question of why I got into analog. Can you do a lot of great things with digital? Yes. Do I use digital all the time? Yes. Digital is so fast. But one issue is to not get into over editing. Once the song is recorded, going back through and remixing it and adding more plugins and adding more, because that, you know, if you've had a lot of experience with recording, that can be not the best move to make. Yes, I do have a lot of, yep, that sure is, Shane. It sure is. It sure is. That's cool. You guys are very familiar with music production. That's really cool. So it is super fun saying hello. And if you guys would... Yeah, and everything all depends. It comes down to the song, the artist, the style of music, and what you're going for. For certain styles, nothing beats digital, in my opinion. All right, you guys. So I think I'm gonna head off for right now. You said it can be, Bill, but at the same time, you know, like, let me show you, like, oh, I can't move it because I have the cable right there. Sometimes, like, you can find analog gear for, like, very, very, very inexpensive. And you can modify it, you can tweak it, use it for different stuff. So it's not always that price. It just depends on what you get. Oh, I guess that... I always wanted to wonder, so, Big Joe, why do you do your profiles like that? Why do you do your profile picture like that? Hello, Bill and Life and Ramiro and everybody that is in here. If I missed any comments earlier, I apologize. But yeah, you don't need much. Like I said, if I can go back, the mixing board is... Really? Really? That's interesting. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. But I'm glad you guys like equipment and stuff like that. But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, you really don't need much, right? You can just have one little thing, and it's all about doing music and stuff, right? What is you have any specific questions about that? Because that's a long story about, like, my entire life history that will be here for 2-3 days. We'll be here for 2-3 days. But I can't say I'm from California. You know what? I would say listen to it and go with which one you feel like matches your style. Or matches what, you know, what you know, feels right. Kind of like, yeah. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and saying hello. And if you have any other questions, leave it in the chat. Check out some of my other videos on music production, mixing, mastering, got some tutorials. We're going to be doing more fun stuff in the future. And Q of A's. Because, yeah, I don't want to just do... I absolutely agree with you, Track. Because we love equipment, but we also love other things, too. We love music, making music, creating music, and art. It's all about art and creativity at the end of the day, right? Oh, that's a great question. I wish technically I can read your name, but I haven't taken that language course. That was in 2022 when I took that language course, so I am a little bit rusty. But there are some really good ones that I would recommend for that. I'm trying to think of the name. It's the same one I couldn't remember the name of the last one. I would get a Neve. Well, actually, what style of music do you do? What style of music? That would depend on, like, like style of music, budget, stuff like that. But there's tons of them. There's tons of them. Oh, music production. Yeah, I write, mix, master, record, produce. This is my music channel, official music channel, so you can check out music tracks on here and stuff like that. Oh, I used to love FL Studio. FL Studio used to be the bomb. I haven't used it in years though. I think I used it up until like 12 or something like that. I used to love FL Studio. I think for dance music, it's like the most fun and easiest to use. Logic is literally the only DAW I haven't used. Logic and that brand new one that Universal Audio made. I can't remember what it's called. But I've used every other DAW. I have not tried Logic, but I've heard so many great things. I remember when Logic used to be not so popular, and now it's like the second, it's probably the most popular DAW now. People swear by it. Like Studio One and Logic are kind of like number 1 and 2. But it used to only be about Pro Tools if you had an Apple, or Cubase if you had a PC. But times have changed a little bit. Oh, you said for stem separation, Logic is really good? Oh, that's cool. That's always helpful. I haven't checked those out yet, Rick. I didn't even know they were making headphones, to be honest with you. I'm still kind of sticking with my headphones that I use. I remember when I first got my first pair of studio headphones, that was a really, 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 really big deal for me. That might have been my first investment. My first major investment for me was a pair of solid mixing headphones. No, not my first, well, not my first, but it felt like my first major investment, because that, it's like, it's one of those things that's necessary, but it's not. He said, "Ooh, that's a great idea." And you know what? That's the best thing to do. He said that he likes to rent out different rooms. I actually know somebody that does that. Likes to rent out different rooms where they have different analog pieces he doesn't have. Like they maybe would have a mixing board, I'm assuming, or a tape machine or some keyboards. Yeah, that can be so, right? That's like the perfect answer, right? That can be so much fun. But the only downside of that is it's easier when you're familiar with the piece of equipment. If you have that hands-on experience with that particular piece that you get only just through learning it over time. But if you just want to, like something like a Pultec, I could see myself doing that with like a Pultec, renting a room that had that, because Pultecs are expensive as opposed to going through and, yeah, having to purchase one of those. Exactly, Rick. Yeah, it's one of those tools, like you don't want to have to, yeah, with those expensive, like again, a solid pair of headphones, it's one of those things that doesn't feel like a necessity, but it kind of is, but it doesn't feel that important. They're much more fun types of things you can go out and get. 30-second preview. Oh, I've heard about those. Yeah, that's a very interesting setup, MC. I have heard about those. The only thing is that bit rate and the transferring and that can be kind of tricky. As soon as it goes digital, you know, changes a little. Yeah, I mix, master, produce, write, sing, play guitar, play bass, do all kinds of different stuff, make music, create. I'm wondering who's going to be the first person, who is going to be the first person to send a gift on here, because I just activated that. You said, what converters am I using? I'm using quite a bit. I've got like 4 different sets of converters. I remember when the converter, there was a lot of tension between high-end versus what type of converters you have. There was so much debate about that years ago. I'm so glad that I missed that wave. And then after that, there was the analog versus digital, and now people are like, okay, analog's okay, analog's fine. There's always some type of a, you know, which DAW, this DAW versus that DAW, Cubase versus Pro Tools. When's the last time I recorded with tape? It's been too long. I think it was like maybe the end of last year. Because I've just been like, well, maybe it had to have been sooner than that. Maybe it was like February or March. I'd have to go back and look. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. It was probably definitely a couple months ago, though. With converters, yeah, some converters are more open, some are more three-dimensional, some are more, why, do you have converters? Are you trying to, like, get into that? I have heard those are amazing track. Amazing. So you wouldn't be the only one doing that. Did I find... Oh, good question. I think digital was really, really helpful for learning how to use. By the time you get the hardware that it was modeled after, or a similar hardware to it, it was way easier to kind of understand where everything's at. So digital was perfect practice for getting the physical piece. Kind of like, let's say you have, what do you call those things? I haven't used them in so long. Guitar modeling software. Like if you have one of those, they have different pedals that are modeled after physical ones, right? And once you've like messed around with those and tweaked them out, once you get like a real physical pedal, you kind of know where everything's at. But it is going to sound a bit different. There's so many different pieces of it. There's so many different good things that sound good. And then everybody has their thing that they swear by, that they kind of keep secret. They have like their little secret thing that they like to, whether it be. But that is super cool. Oh, Privyat. What is up? Kaktala. I took that language course when I was in college. Yeah, very fun language to learn. I need to brush up again though, because I used to be able to speak it, pretty decent for a beginner. I had a conversation with my Uber driver one time who was from that country, and we spoke in that language. I'm like, yes. Right? Absolutely. All right, you guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and head off for today. But if you have any questions or special requests or something that you want to do in an upcoming video, please let me know in the comments. Oh, I actually have a whole video where I talk about that, Rick, as far as the speakers. And I have one where I talk about headphones and speakers. Yep. Yep. Thank you so much, Track. It's awesome hanging out with you guys. All right. And thank you guys for liking the live. Way cool. I know, right? That's part of I love to just talk about gear. It's fun for me. It's a very fun thing to talk about that, but it's definitely wouldn't be everybody's thing, right? Just like I'm sure computer programmers love to talk about code and yeah, stuff like that. Hope you have an awesome day. You too. That's awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out. And I'll see you soon. Let me know in the comments what you want to talk about next video. Till next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.